somebody had put up a photo of a dog in an office and written chief happiness officer, and there was a comment that said, oh, so HR, we look at, we are the chief empathy officer, but what we should move towards is business, be the chief business accelerators.
Your primary goal is to make the organization successful, and everything is one level down to that.
The role of the HR is that of a badass friend. Is the friend not empathetic towards you? Yes, he or she is. But their job is to show you the reality.
Rather than gamifying rewards, can we gamify work itself? For my sales team, every X lakh of revenue that they do is one run. And we have literally created IPL teams where people are competing. And the language now is around how many runs have you made today?
Hi, and Priya, thank you for kind of coming on the show today. And I just thought, we'll start off quickly by asking,
Okay.
about how do you change behaviors at work? All right. And I was doing my own research and I did come across an organization which has been doing some work in this direction. It's Irrational Labs, and they have a 3B framework. It basically talks about behaviors, why people do certain things, barriers, the friction that kind of leads into a certain behaviors and people that, work. And finally, benefits if you change that behavior as well. So ultimately, if you want to kind of, see the change at workplaces, you need to address the behaviors. And, I also have been in conversation with you, and you've been very strongly talking about designing employee experiences. So we would just love to know at this point in time as to what has been your experience while designing employee experience at workplaces. And if you could also touch base how AI is changing the human intervention while design.
I think bang on. I think behavior and employee experiences, I think they all come together, right? Because when you are designing a workplace and you're designing an organization, I truly believe you're designing something very unique to the context of that organization's mission, that organization's customers, that organization's inherent strengths that they have, and that is their marketplace. And that is why they are going in, right? So, I work with an organization called AgroStar, which is in the agri space. The kind of employees and behaviors I want to promote in my organization are very different from many other agri companies in this space itself, because their play to win is very different, right? And that's what I need to attract and I need to nurture also, correct? And that's where I think designing employee experiences comes in, to get the right sort of person for us, and then to help them be successful by sort of telling them, at least at a macro level, what are the kind of behaviors that will make you successful here, right? So that, I think, is something that is very, very critical. I have a big issue mostly with people who talk about best practices just without context of all of this, correct? That, let's say we have to do something new in hiring this year. What are the best practices? You go to a conference, you hear 5 people talking, and no doubt it might be phenomenal things. But until you understand that what is the problem which my user or my employee is facing, it doesn't really make sense. So for me, the primary user is my employee. And again, I feel many times we lack the context that even employee is not one user. My employee is a user, my middle manager is a user, my senior leadership is a user. They are all different people who are coming in to maybe solve the same problem, but with very different context, with very different inherent behaviors, with very different incentives to solve the problem. If you want to design user experiences, one of the things that has worked for us is to look at it almost like a product experience. And what I mean by that is, are you aware of your user, who the user is? Are you aware of what is the problem which a user or employee is facing today? And then, what is, if you do design a solution and you take an attempt to solve the problem, are you aware of what the success metric is going to be to solve that, right? And I think the easiest way is to, look at it as a product problem, do minimum viable products, do pilots, see if it is really, changing things, and then scale. I think that is a lot more important than coming in saying that, okay, this is my policy, this is my framework. I have figured out the best way to solve it, and I'm going to go ahead and, roll it out across my 1,500 people. And they will have no other option but to comply because it is coming from an HR team.
I love this because I have done it myself, right? When I
Okay.
worked with MPL, we had a big problem of employee retention. People
Correct.
joined and they left within a week or 10 days or a month, right?
Yeah.
And this was during that 21 boom. When you have a product, right, you have a retention curve. You look at the
Perfect.
users are coming, why are they dropping off, right?
Correct.
Why can't we think of the same thing for people? You're coming, you're not
Yeah.
joining an app, you're joining a company, but something is happening along on D1, D7, D15, D30. We broke them into cohorts, right? So I think that's one example, but we like to give actionable stuff
Sure.
for folks listening in. Let's say they want to do this at work. Quickly, like, can you give us an example of somebody who wants to apply this? This is basically your design thinking, you're saying, right?
Correct.
And product thinking. How will they do it at work? Maybe if you can pick up one example. And how do they actually use the product lens to solve that problem?
Sure. So I think what has worked for us is that we literally did a workshop with our teams, and you can do the same thing yourself as an individual contributor. Also, you can do it, right? Where we charted out the entire user journey. Okay, let's start from somebody even interviewing for AgroStar, right? So if they are interviewing, what is the experience looking like today? Let's say how many interviews they're going through, what is the communication they're getting, who's negotiating the offer, when they are getting the offer, when are they getting the offer letter, then what is happening on day one, and like you said, day 2, day 3, day 30, day 70. And we literally charted that out. And we looked at it in two lenses. One is, what is the problem a user is facing today? And second is, what are the opportunities where we can create wow or 7-star experiences, right? And 7-star is a framework very, very nicely built by Brian Chesky for Airbnb, wherein he says that, if you get what you expect, it's a 5-star, right? I join an organization, or, I have a negotiation with my recruiter, and, we close an offer and she sends me the offer letter. That's 5-star, assuming it went really well. She spoke all the nice things. She gave me a context. She understood me. She created a win-win. That's a 5-star. What is it that you can create unexpectedly that is going to create that 7-star, right? And I think what we did is that we mapped out the entire user journey in very small components, like let's say hiring, onboarding, then the first 90 days, critical milestones, let's say promotions, milestone anniversaries and things like that. And there, I believe you will find opportunities, right? Today, when anybody joins and, we close the offer and the person accepts that, I want to be part of your mission of helping farmers win, we send them a small cake on that particular day saying that, hey, congratulations, please celebrate this milestone with your family, right? And it is such a small thing, but which is creating a wow user experience, because that is coming in with that element of personalization plus unexpectedness. That is where the 7-star thing is coming in, right? So what I would suggest is map out your journeys, look at inflection points wherein either, like you said, the user is dropping off. So let's say, typically post a specific interview, it is dropping off. That's when you understand. Or then you look at opportunities to create 7-star experiences, because I do believe that really has magnifying impact, because even if you remove the friction, it can take you to 5-star. But if you add some of these elements, I think that is where the limit from 5-star to 7-star really comes in.
Awesome. In this whole way now with AI, right, a lot of what you just said becomes so much easier to do.
Easier.
Right? You've mapped out your journey, like those conversations, running through notes. But just curious to understand, sort of asked, where does AI come in your experience in this whole journey?
So I personally believe that the biggest benefit, Ranak, which AI has today, is that you can run pilots. Earlier, it would take you a long time to probably get insights from a lot of data you may be collecting, or figure out a way to represent it, or give them access to view live dashboards of some of these things. So there, I think AI can play a huge role, wherein the launching and quick scale up, which would take a lot of time, because anything which is new needs to be handcrafted, right? And when you say handcrafted, it typically always meant a lot of manual stuff, correct? And which maybe many times would dissuade people from pilots, or say, that no, what, it's going to take 2 months. Let's just start building the big thing. So I personally think that the big thing AI can do is it can help you go to launch, especially from an
Very
MVP
fast.
pilot thing, can be very, very fast. I'll give you an example of something that we are trying to do now. We realize that we have a lot of information on employees, right? So we have a lot of 360-degree feedback inputs which would have come in. We typically run appreciation weeks where people are sending notes which are based on our culture principles, and these are all sporadic data points which have been collected over time for an employee, and the employee has access to them. Correct. The beauty is, I feel that HR has so much information. We just need to figure out a way to package it also in a very non-judgmental but nudge people at the right time kind of it, right? So we are doing a quick pilot that can we do like a, AgroStar Unwrapped, wherein you have all of this feedback. You can put it together using AI. That,
Nice.
hey, Priyanjali, you know what? As the year
That's
wraps up,
amazing, actually.
yeah, these are
Yeah.
your superpowers, and this is your 2025 Unwrapped for you.
Amazing idea. In fact,
Yeah.
when I just logged into Riverside, the first thing they showed me in a like non-exitable screen, this is your Unwrapped. Like
Oh,
Unwraps are so
lovely.
powerful. Like
Yeah.
like for my example, like I use Granola a lot. That's a note-taking app, right?
Correct.
It has so much information because it's listening to everything I'm saying.
Yeah.
The first thing it gave me an Unwrapped, it wrote a beautiful message of, you stepped back from, corporate ladders to spend time with your daughter because I took a break. Right?
Correct.
And
Correct.
that I put it out on LinkedIn also. That hit so hard. Like I've saved it somewhere where, the thing that I'm so happy about 2025 is that. So I think you should do it 100%. And it's an amazing idea. Probably you should just write about it on LinkedIn, and others also should do it.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
mean, take the credit because the idea was yours.
But I'm a real big believer in nudges. So any nudges that we can keep giving people, right? If we inherently believe that our employees are amazing, phenomenal, they want to get better, they want to become a better version of themselves, then I think really as HR, how can you give nudges to them? And I think this is also where a lot of AI can come in, because I do feel that anything which we are doing through AI or through technology, one of the other differentiations is that many times it comes without judgment, right? It's not somebody,
100%.
it's not my
Yeah.
manager who's telling me that I need to get better.
Yeah.
It is this AI as an independent person who is evaluated. And so I think leaning into that also, right, is going to be an interesting thing that I personally am going to explore a little bit more in the next few months.
Yeah. Yeah. So Saurav, remember Vishwa on our last podcast brought up that one of the barriers to change is, like, in our country especially, how will others think? We can't be
Yeah.
vulnerable. When the AI is telling me feedback, I'm actually taking it very seriously. Versus somebody telling me feedback, I'm like, isko pata nahi hai. But
Exactly.
it's like, AI knows it
Yeah,
is
yeah.
not wrong. And then I'm like, really? Right? It's so cool.
Correct.
And I think it's
Yeah.
these things that our function should heavily start doing, right? Think product, use AI, do these things which actually move the needle, right? That
Yeah.
moves us away from. It pains me to say this, but I'd seen this post, I think a week back, where somebody had put up a photo of a dog in an office, right? And and written a chief happiness officer. And there was a comment that somebody had come and said, "Oh, so HR."
Oh my
I mean,
God.
like it's like, that's what, like, we look at, like we are the chief empathy officer, but what we should move towards is chief, like we should move towards business, be the chief business accelerators, be the product accelerators, be the guy who's driving the business, right? I know you have a strong point of view, would love to hear, in fact both of you would love to hear both of your takes on this.
When I started my career, obviously I was part of very large organizations wherein HR had a very, and especially at a junior level. So you're just starting off in that department or that function, right? And HR had a very specific role to play. There was a box and you had to be in that box. And then when I transitioned into this world of startups, I realized that, a function comes second, right? Your primary goal is to make the organization successful. And everything is, one level down to that. When I joined Ola, I joined in the Pune office, and there was no desk for me. So it obviously very early, like the real crazy hectic days, and there was no desk defined for me. I was the first HR person to join that particular function. And for the first 2 weeks, now I had no option, but I had to sit in my city head's cabin, and because there was no place for me. And I don't think, and I heard a lot of things in those 2 weeks, which, believe me, if I would have done n number of roundtable discussions and group discussions and skip meetings, nobody would have told me. as the HR person, right? But I was just there sitting in the corner doing my things and, just listening to a lot of stuff which was happening around. So, so I think that's where the chief thesis comes in, that HR has to be chief business accelerators. That is the key goal. And I mean, we are not mercenaries. It's not going to come at the cost of employee happiness, right? So it's never an either or. But primarily, I think your goal, and everybody's goal, to be honest, it's not just about HR. I think everybody's goal is to think beyond their function and say that, how do you accelerate business? I think sometimes we get categorized into that, you have to be the empathetic person, you have to be the person who people can vent out to and be the safe space for people. And as you should, nobody's taking away from that. One of the big components of employee happiness is their own success, right? If employees are not successful, they are not hitting their goals, they are not feeling a sense of accomplishment, you may do many other things from a community perspective, from an engagement perspective, from an n number of perspective. That is not going to result in employee stickiness or retention or something like that, right?
I have a very similar thing. I mean, somehow for the longest time, some of my peers, my batchmates from MBA days, typically feel that I'm a misfit in the HR. I feel the role of the HR is that of a badass friend. Is the friend not empathetic towards you? Yes, he or she is, right? But their job is to kind of, show you the reality, help you, enable you, provide solutions. If I were to kind of, look at it from a very practitioner's point of view, we need to solve the problems, whether they are people problems or process problems or, business problems. Ultimately, we need to solve the problems. We take help, of the stakeholders. We probably kind of, go out, bring in tools, enable, our folks internally, irrespective of all of that. Finally, I would also say to challenge yourself, pick up a strong metric. Something that we have also spoken long time ago, Ranak, about, revenue per employee, bringing it back here again. But, that's a metric that if HR leaders or let's say, business leaders start picking it up, I think it's a great tool metric to kind of hold yourself accountable. Grooming within the space of HR has started from a learning development space. So there's a framework, we call it as ADDIE, ADDIE, which is analyze, design, develop, implement and evaluate. I want to flip it and say that whenever you're designing employee experiences or enabling the businesses, move that 1D into, prior to that and call it DADDIE. But the funda still remains the same. You first design, whether your design is actually kind of, enabling people, you analyze it. Then you kind of, like Priya spoke about it some time ago, that we create an MVP, very similar to a product philosophy. You go full scale and then you kind of, implement it and evaluate it. And it's a continuous loop.
I feel HR needs to collaborate across different functions, get relevant people on the table, create maybe pods and solve for that. One of the things that we are doing now is, like, we are collaborating with the technology team, we are collaborating with the product team, we are collaborating with the finance team. So I think multiple people will have to come together to co-create solutions for an employee today. I don't think HR alone can do it. Everybody is bringing in their own perspective because they have been users themselves. So again, how do you get users themselves to be part of the solution, right? Can we have early champions? Can you have them part of a discussion before you start designing itself to really understand that? So that also is extremely critical, I feel.
Something that's been on my mind, and I believe all of us have worked in the space of decoding culture, or let's say, breaking down the earlier culture and kind of rebuilding what is required based on the pivots the organization is making and so on and so forth. And again, in some of our previous conversations, Priya, we have mentioned or spoken about how culture can be copied, but communities cannot. So as an HR professional, I would love to know some of your thoughts on, how do you build a strong community that they are fans of your organization or your, people. So share your experiences, and we would love to hear your thoughts.
I do believe that culture is it's very difficult to measure. If you go to any great company's culture principles, there are going to be very similar ones running across. So again, let's look at it from an employer or user experience, right? Culture is what they are going to experience, not what is written on the website, correct? So what a user experiences today is what is culture. So if that is the case, then how can you design experiences to ensure that an employee understands your culture very, very rapidly and becomes part of it also, right? And all of us are running very cross-functional kind of organizations wherein you have different age group people, very different educational background people, people with very different motivators, and so on. So I really feel that the way forward is communities. And when I say community, to me, that means culture plus a shared language, plus rituals, plus spaces where people come together, right? I think all of these components are extremely important. And, as an HR person, when you are designing your organization, design for that, right? It may seem extremely silly, but we have a specific language code in our company, right? We call employees something. We call them Stars, and that I think a lot of companies have. But our work anniversaries are called adversaries, right? We have different languages, which is very linked to the agrostar lingo, so as to speak, because it also makes it very easy for somebody who comes in to adapt to that and to be part of that kind of a thing. We have a lot of rituals. We are big on celebrating work anniversaries also, right? I've been part of so many organizations wherein the only time where people know how valued they were in their farewells, right? There was recently a LinkedIn post that somebody did wherein we celebrated somebody's milestone anniversary on the floor with like 500 people, because he is the one who teaches all of these people. And we said, we are not going to celebrate your work anniversary in a room. We have to celebrate it to the people that, you really impact, right? And imagine that feeling, correct? So I think those rituals, really make a difference. And HR is crafting that experience that, hey, you know what, we are going to celebrate this. This is going to happen. In promotions, for example, we have rituals wherein, we make families part of promotion calls. So, for the first 50 minutes, it's a very serious conversation. And then, the person's family member is joining on the call and we are announcing the promotion in front of the family member, right? So I think some of these kind of, and it's very difficult because year on year we are realizing that the unexpected, how do you sort of do it, is becoming very difficult. But I think how do you create these rituals is extremely important from a sense of community. And then I think the third thing is we talk about spaces. So I think HR needs to create spaces wherein people can come and mingle. We have leaned a lot into sports, Saurabh and Ranak. I think we've realized that sports is a big thing. Like, we can keep saying that we don't have hierarchy in this company. We value everybody's opinion. We believe in having fun. We believe in, stepping away from our screen. So you can see all of this. So we have a lot of rituals plus communities that we have created around badminton, around cricket, around stuff to sort of, come in together. And I'll give you a very, very simple thing that we did and we unlocked. Like, we hire a lot of agriculture graduates across India who come to work in our office in Pune. And, these are all like 19, 20-year-olds, first time away from a city, first time away from their home. They mostly are from villages. One of the quick things we did is we did something called as pitch talks, wherein first Monday of or first Friday of every month, the team is coming together to play cricket, right? And they are realizing that even the newest person who has no experience, can get a very senior person bowled out, and the 50 people are going to cheer for him, right? And you can't say it. They have to experience that, right? So I think that is again such a simple thing. We realized that because when they were on the field, people are playing for 10 minutes, but the remaining you're playing for 10 minutes, but the rest of the time you are just very casually mingling. You're finding out you're from this hometown, that hometown. As HR organizations create spaces where people are connecting about things other than work, right? I think that has to be handcrafted. That is not going to happen on its own. So again, I think that is sort of what I've realized is that culture, one thing is it's on the wall. It is extremely important to articulate your culture, to communicate it, to have a lot of collaterals around the culture itself. But until you define the languages, until you define the rituals, until you define the spaces, that is what is going to keep the culture get alive in an organization.
Before I kind of pass it on to Ranak as well, but your whole conversation reminds me of a simple anecdote story. John F. Kennedy, when US was on its mission to send an astronaut land on a moon and so on and so forth, He was visiting NASA and he needed to visit the washroom. So he's in the washroom and he meets a janitor. And the janitor basically is kind of very welcoming, warm. John F. Kennedy apparently kind of asks him, "So what do you do here?" And the janitor responds to him that I'm here to put man on the moon, something
On the
like
moon,
that, right?
yeah.
And I
Correct.
probably may not be getting it right, but it's such a
Correct.
powerful statement that he didn't say
Correct.
I work here as a janitor. He ended up
Perfect.
saying that I work here to put the man on the moon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that vision, that connection to the larger mission, I think, is a very powerful, way to build a community. Jumping the gun here and probably asking Priya here, could you share some of the initiatives, maybe the ones that you have shared and maybe plus more on some of the employee experiences that has worked for you? And I would be more interested in failures that probably did not work for you while you were designing employee experiences.
So there is a particular initiative that I really thought will work a lot, which was around gamifying the entire uh, works thing only, right? Like I personally believe that we have spent a lot of time designing carrots, sticks, for employees to perform better. But there is a very very interesting book called Drive by Daniel Pink, right? And he says that we have spent so much time in figuring out motivators and demotivators. If we could spend that amount of time in making work inherently more enjoyable, maybe you wouldn't need so many of these external stimulus, right? So try to take a shot at it this year, wherein we said that obviously we have a sales organization, we have a large sales organization, and with sales comes targets, daily targets, monthly targets, weekly targets, and when you are in a very high growth, fast paced environment, I think the targets are always slightly above what is comfortable, right? And we got a lot of inputs that that it's getting too much. Can you do some engagement? Can you do some fun Fridays and terrific Thursdays and this and all of that stuff, right? So, two examples. One is that what we tried to do was, can we make work inherently more fun rather than gamifying rewards? Can we gamify work itself, right? And we are running a very interesting thing around sales, wherein for my sales team, every X lakh of revenue that they do is one run, right? And we have literally created, sort of IPL teams where, people are competing. And the conversation and the language now is around how many runs have you made today, right? And how many runs have you made this week? And are you a orange cap? Are you winning an orange cap this season or not? What we have generally seen is that, individual contributors many times in sales, uh, you know, helping other people reach that level is not really top of their priority list, right? They are hyper bent on being successful themselves. All our incentives are geared towards, individual success. And how do you sort of unlock it? And, Hazar bar in language, in meetings, we have said that, it is your job to groom people, mentor people, etc. But then you needed, programs to sort of build that in also, where it is not just talk, but so that this is something interesting, sort of that we are doing, wherein we have gamified work itself. It's not about being stressed for 5 days of the week and one day you have a fun Friday or something like that. But I think uh, again a learning that every idea has its time, and just because one person is really excited about it does not mean that your stakeholders are going to love it, right? How do you simplify it in terms of communication to sort of put it across to multiple sets? So again, decided that we will do an MVP, launched it with one small team. Took a lot of time, because I think in large organizations, any initiative you launch, for it to for that vibe to happen, it needs extraordinary amount of effort also, right? So we've launched it, we've scaled it to a certain limit with one team, and the idea now is that where enough people have come in and have spoken to the employees themselves, and in meetings where this is not even on the agenda, but kya ho raha hai kal, last hafte mein kya ho raha hai, what are you guys doing, when it spontaneously starts coming up from your users and employees, right? That hey, this is what is happening. I'm really excited about this. That is, I think, when people start taking notice. And now the plan is to launch it across and scale it across the rest of the organization. So I think that was one thing wherein honesty looked at it as a failure earlier. That what, this is going to work. This is going to help the organization. Why can't you just convince 5 people that this is the right thing to do right now, and not let's wait for another 6 months to make it happen? But I think a lot of learnings in simplifying the communication. Again, clarifying what is the real user problem you are trying to solve. And, again, like we spoke about, there are different users. So what is a problem for a cohort of employees may not even be a problem for the other cohort of employees, right? So they don't believe that it's a problem worth solving, right? So I think simplifying communication, being very clear about the expected benefits, I think those were some learnings that maybe that could have been articulated better. And where do some of these initiatives sit into the existing lot of programs which may be being run for the same goal of increasing employee productivity, maximizing revenue, maximizing business. I think articulating that has been the critical thing. If young HR professionals just do even this one thing, right, that you put yourself in the user's shoe, I think that is just like even following 80/20, right? That can be something really, really meaningful, because it forces you to then think about everything.
So that word 80/20, I
Yeah.
just love that word, and I
Yeah.
hope more HR professionals think 80/20, because we do so much on the 80 and
Correct.
not the 20, right? Whereas the outcomes come
Yeah.
from the 20. Like if
Yeah.
we all just think from Pareto, like what is the thing that you're doing that is moving the needle? It's always the small 20% things that we do.
Correct.
But yeah, we have to look busy, sort of, which we spoke of, and show up and say what's up, which is all the 80%, right?
And we are all guilty of it, right? Like I also feel sometimes it's relatively easy to keep following up with your team about stuff, right? As opposed to like focusing on my 20, which is deep work. I think one of the things, again, we have sort of been guilty for, or, some of the learning sort of we are talking along the way, right? That maybe early on it was that, any initiative or any program that you are running has to be universally appreciated, right? So your employee also should really like it. Your senior leadership also should really value it. And over time, I think one of my realization has been that these are also two different user cohorts, right? Earlier, it would bother me that, 100% of what we are doing should be valued by everyone. But now I think that realization has also come in that, what, they are going to value different things. It's about you, what you put your energy towards. And as long as it's solving for some user problem and that problem is meaningful enough, I think we should stop, looking for senior leader buy-in and, stakeholder alignment on everything that HR does. I think we should really stop doing that.
Right. So I know I'm probably going to, ask both of you a tricky question at this point in time, which has been on my mind. And hopefully this brings everything together, right? So number one, I think all of us, at some point in time felt we need to productize HR, which is going to operate like how our product teams would operate. Personas is something that I've, heard from both of you. You can probably have three for internal users. Senior leadership as one, mid management could be another, frontline folks could be
Correct.
another personas, and design probably employee experiences using these personas per se, right? Second thing, I think run up basis your experience, and even what Priya you mentioned, we probably sit on a gold mine of data that gets collected in an organization through various touch points. However, I still probably personally struggle a lot of times as an HR leader as to, with so much of frameworks and great data, all right, how does the nth person in the organization act or do things, all right, which will empower or enable the organization? And I'm being very candid in this thing. I've struggled a lot of times, which is where I keep going back to nudges. I keep going back to behavioral sciences. I keep trying to do my research around why people do what they do, right? And I think that has been my pain area. But would love to know, from both of you, any experience that probably enables or eases this whole struggle.
I think communication is extremely important, and not just communicating what the change is and what you are expecting the person to change, but why is it happening, right? And you need to over communicate that through multiple forums, multiple conversations, multiple people communicating that. You really need to spend time with them in the trenches to understand user behavior. and you need to bring in simplicity. Like when we are designing KPIs, I feel that, like we as a company are trying to do 5 things, right? Like I have had experience in the past, sort of, when we've added all 5 things, 6 things to KPIs. Every program manager, every capability leader has come in and said, nahi, ye bhi karna hai, ye bhi karna hai, ye bhi karna hai. That the employee is thoroughly confused. And when I am doing field visits, what I'm realizing, that the most successful people are the people who are tuning out this noise only, right? They know what they have to do. None of the noise that we believe is very impactful, which is coming in from this, is really helping them. So I think when you're trying to change behaviors, you need to keep it simple. Many times I think we get focused on solving too many things, and we believe things seem extremely logical. I'll give you an example, right? Like we have a tool which is for employees and which has been designed by the best product managers. Like we have a great product team, right? And we expected them to do sales in a specific way for us. Today, we were trying to solve for productivity, right? So today, when an employee wakes up, he needs to take a decision that who are the customers I'm going to meet today, right? And we designed a beautiful product which will help him decide which are the products, which are the customers he will use today, right? It had filters, it had very logical, and like my product manager is explaining to me, and I'm like, yeah, this is so logical. I get up and I see that, these are the people who have not paid, or these are the people who have, not bought for the last 1 month. Tuck, 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 tuck. I apply 6 filters on a very easy to use app, and I get this beautiful list of 5 people whom I need to visit today. And people, there was no adoption, right? There's a frustration from your end that, I made it so simple for you that, I have done all the thinking for you. I have built the RAM for you. You just need to go ahead and do it, right? And then when you go in and you actually talk to people, you realize that they are not thinking like somebody who, lives in
Right.
Excel sheets and Google Sheets every day. They are thinking with their mind, which, by the way, you hire them for that because they have that local nuance, they have that mindset. Changing behavior is one of the most difficult thing that we can do. You have to start with very small incentives. You have to start with storytelling. You have to start that, okay, these are the people who have adapted to this behavior, and, go, make them successful, have them talk about the behavior changing, how has that impacted them. But would really request everybody to take a step back and say that really, why is this change needed? And second is all of this amount of change needed so quickly? Or, like you need to do like habit stacking, and you do change stacking also, where you implement a small change, then people get comfortable with that, implement another change, people get comfortable with that. I think that is the way to go.
So, Ranak, is community building once again probably important as a part of this whole driving behaviors in the organization? Something that Priya just touched upon. Like there will be early adopters, there will be fence sitters, then there will be laggards. But the early adopters' stories, testimonials, or let's say this was my experience, tends to influence the fence sitters and let's say laggards. So, question back to you is community or building a community driven approach in your people initiatives, employee experiences, is it the way forward? Or any other
Yeah,
thoughts?
yeah. So eh, I think it's not just for the people team; it's for the company
Yeah.
itself, right? So, like I don't know if you've seen. Like I just saw a report that one of the hottest jobs in the next few years is going to be storytellers. Storytellers, like the Valley is now actively hiring. One of the highest paid roles is people who are storytellers and IRL um, planners or IRL something, which in real life events, right? Who can come and craft a story and host in real life events because they all lead to one thing, which is community. Companies are now rallying behind that I will have people who will come and tell stories is what drives the human race forward, right? We've gone to war because of it, we made progress because of it, and now people are realizing that organizations is the place that people come to work because of the stories you heard from, let's say, someone. Why do we say referrals are so powerful? Referrals are
Yeah.
nothing but a
Yeah.
reflection of
Interesting.
the stories that you hear, right? So I think those things, like the more storytellers, the more you storytell about your company, about what you do, right? Like somebody who's helping farmers win, right? If a lot of storytelling is done there, that will now trickle down as a company to everybody else. And it starts with, again, inside the company, right? The same thing, storytelling is
Yeah.
happening within the organization also, right? So the company that I'm building, I'm very big on storytelling. So that's why you see a lot of now companies, a lot of these VCs are so much heavily investing on events, event planners, people who talk about talk about the company, because that's the way to go. And we are going to move away from just marketing and ads and all of that, right? To really connecting with stories. So not just, I think, HR is 100%, because ultimately it is the people who drive the company forward, and the people rally behind a mission, and that mission is not walls and pictures. The mission is actually real life stuff that you hear from the founders, from your friends, to even transcending one step above. The company now needs to tell the world about what they are talking of, and in turn all of this is building basically a community. Like, the company becomes a community and everybody wants to be a part of the community. So yeah, awesome. I think we've touched on so many different things, but and so actionable. I guess I hope folks listening in, and we've talking of stuff which is very forward looking, but shouldn't be forward looking. It should be what the way
Yeah.
we always do things, but we aren't, right? Just hope someone listening in who's young, who's starting on the career or middle of the career, just listens to everything that Priyanjali's said and sort of added, and just takes it and actually uses them, because there's going to be significant ROI if you just think from users, if you do design thinking, if you do product thinking, if you try to build communities. So thank you, Priyanjali. This has been super enlightening and super just a refresher of things that I used to do so much in the past, but I don't get to do them anymore. Sort of, any closing thoughts from you before you hear from Priya?
No, absolutely. I just want to kind of say to all the listeners, who are tuned in, that let's be the progressive HR that our businesses and unit heads expect out of us. One of the ways I think which we tapped on definitely is to build a very strong community of fans who take the organization to growth. Use certain frameworks, probably study, research, behavioral sciences, which enable people. I think one of the most difficult tasks, or the hottest task, just the way Ranak mentioned, was also is to drive people. I think Priya also touched upon it through Daniel Pink's book called Drive, where he talks about motivation, autonomy, purpose, and these are the most difficult things as, let's say, HR professionals for us to drive it in our own organizations. So yeah, I mean, be the most forward-looking HR professionals and thought leaders out there. That's my take here. Priya?
It's a really amazing time to be a HR professional. I really do feel that, right? Like, and these are two, three things I tell anybody who joins my team also, right? That one is you have to be intensely curious. So be part of workplaces which promote that, first of all, right? But be intensely curious about what is happening in the organization, and be extremely high agency. I think HR has a lot more say, has a lot more power than what we believe. And there's this amazing quote I love, which says, "It's not who is going to let me; it's who is going to stop me." Right. So if you channel that energy, that it's about who is going to stop me, and I'm sure the person stopping me has a lot of logical reasons. So you go to that person and you say that, what are your problems? You tell me, I will solve for them. Right. But I think there's a lot of space for high agency people to come in and really change. And again, we talk about HR on the seat of the table and all that. I really feel business leaders today want help, are ready to give it to HR. I think it's on us whether we really champion ourselves, believe in high agency, show a lot of relentless optimism, and solve for problems, because people problems are not going anywhere. AI is not going to solve for that. And again, I feel, the way AI can help young people so much, I feel, right? Because it's like having a personal coach whom you are sharing, saying that, "Hey, this is a challenge I'm facing. This is what I really want to do. How do I navigate this?" Right. And that was something like when we were starting out, like, we started getting coaches now, right? And, paying a lot for them. And now you have somebody who can really be your, pod crew without being there, right? I'm personally very optimistic about anybody being in HR or anybody being in the corporate environment today trying to solve problems. They've become so much easier with AI. So first is not look at yourself as an HR professional. Look at yourself as a professional who is focused on making that organization very successful. And be intensely curious and channel high agency energy. I think if you're able to do both of these things, then then the sky is the limit for anybody working in companies today, and especially HR, because this is a time to step outside of that box. The field is open now. I think it's about how fast we can run. That's all.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Priyanjali.
Awesome.
I'll leave your LinkedIn below, Priyanjali. You can connect with her. She posts a lot about what she's doing at work at a company. We can share email ID also if somebody wants to reach out to you, connect with you. Okay. Thank you. I mean, this was awesome, Priyanjali. Thank you. Thank you, Saurabh, for again making this happen.
You.
Thank you, everyone.